Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Worldwide People's Championship with me, your host, Gyle. I'm very proud and privileged today to bring you a final match from the under 2000 bracket, and that's going to be featuring the reigning champ IridiumBLOWS and the challenger UES Shepherd. It's going to be a best of three, or first of two, depending on which way you look at it. And if any of you aren't aware, IridiumBLOWS has won 5 of these on the trot, so he's going for his 6th straight win. So only Shepherd as the challenger can prevent that from happening. But let's head on over to the first game, which is going to be on Vargas Pass. And I haven't seen much of this map actually in recent days. Not since the Imber Cup. I think that was the last time I saw it, and I've got to say I haven't missed it. It's not one of my favourite maps, not least because the colour is vomit-inducing, but also to play on as well. It's not particularly fun. You've got these basic singular mass point in your starting area, and then 2 sort of peripheral ones, and otherwise all of the mass is dumped in these canyons where there are lots of choke points, lots of places to fire down from ridges. So it generally makes life very difficult indeed, not least of all, of course, because the relief of the land is so lumpy, so hilly. Direct fire units can struggle also. One saving grace for it, I will say, there's a hell of a lot of reclaim dotted about the place, so if you're good with your reclaiming skills and your timing, you can rescue your economy using that. It's a hell of a lot of mass in the form of reclaimable rocks. But anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at the locations of the players. Up here we've got the Colonel, UES Shepherd. He's going green Cybrin, opening looks like 5 P-gens, land factory, and I would bet my left sock that that next building's probably going to be an air factory. Yep, as soon as I say it, there it goes down. So all very tidy. And, oh look, very similar build indeed. From down here, from the reigning champ, IridiumBLOWS, he's going a yellow Cybrin as well. So it's a mirror matchup, and he's doing almost exactly the same build, except he's throwing an extra power gen in there for good measure. Early off the bat, he's getting an engineer outside to do some reclaim, and he's sending other ones up here to grab the mass points as you'd expect, and exactly the same thing going on, except an extra Q point from one of these engineers is going to be going down on the factory, and an attack move immediately on the air factory from IridiumBLOWS, and that's not even finished construction yet, but you can bet there's either a bomber or a jester coming out of there. I would bet it's more likely to be a bomber. He's obviously just trying to get that out straight over there to hit whatever engineers he expects to be there, because you know there is going to be, so why not anticipate it and get it rolling on the harassment straight away. You might also have noticed, incidentally, guys, it's an under 2000 bracket, but IridiumBLOWS is 2082. The actual cutoff point for the bracket is 2050. That might sound strange, but when you think about it, these aren't the only games that these guys play, so your global ranking is going to fluctuate, and it just gives you a bit of leeway. But I have it on good authority that should IridiumBLOWS retain his title again this week, he will be bumped to the over 2000 division, of which there aren't currently that many sign-ups going on week to week, but it can be directly challenged, and that will only change, of course, if they get to the point where there's 4 sign-ups in the week. But out comes the bomber, and it's making its way across the map. You can see the move point's been put right into the center of those 4 mass points, so he's looking to pick up, but he flies straight over a mole, which is going to give Shepherd good vision, and there's an interceptor in the area, and that little turning circle isn't going to help you get a bomb off, and out he gets popped straight out of the sky. Shepherd, on the other hand, hasn't gone for the forward base at all. He sent his first bomber to the main base, but he's got an interceptor on his tail. He's not going to be able to take out any P-gens because he won't get a second pass. He goes straight for the air factory to try and damage any units under production, and indeed hits that interceptor once it's been made and takes it down to 30 HP. Both of these guys now, almost identically in timings, take their ACU to the middle section, and that's kind of what you want to do. You take your ACU to the middle or to up here, either or, and just like on other maps that have similar channels, you're going to pump the majority of your units up into the place where your ACU isn't. So your ACU is going to hold one point, and those ground units are going to hold the other. Up here we've got a little vanguard of units, 2 Mantis and a Mole, skirting around the top of the map for Iridium, and they're going to try and get round the back, I imagine, to do some damage to Shepherd. However, there is a Mole here, and you can see he picks that up. The instant change of direction. That mole gets insta-popped by that Mantis, and very unfortunate for Shepard. His Mantis are both firing at different targets, and Iridium manages to score the pickup. Needs to bring this other one back into the fray though, which he does, and promptly gets the pickup. I don't think he's going to get a great deal of damage done to Shepard's base though, being as there are now 3 land factories online and operational, and he'll be able to redirect any other units. But a few more interceptors coming in for IridiumBLOWS, just popping a guarding interceptor out of the sky from Shepard. So early air control looking ever so slightly like it's in Iridium's favor. Iridium not paying attention here at all. Should have gone for that engineer. Obviously his attention's elsewhere. Allows that engineer to reclaim that Mantis that came across that factory. If he hadn't, he might have been able to do some damage to some of these mass points. And finally that little vanguard that marched around the top of the map for Iridium gets popped. So that will relieve a mild headache for Shepard, who's stationed a few units down here as well. He's got a hunter, the light assault bot, and a mole. Not really sure exactly what they're doing. I guess they're kind of just lying in wait, expecting to see if an engineer comes around the bottom to pick up these 2 mass points, or to have a go at it. You can actually see that Iridium's managed to make good use of those that mass in the form of rocks. Got a couple of engineers out there to deal with it, which is going to be a nice pickup for him. A couple of scouting Mantis for Shepard, not getting too far there. Got a point defense going down as well at this little forward section. Interestingly, Iridium's a little bit slower getting his forward factory up at this point. So important to get that up and running and online as quickly as possible, so that if these mass points go down, you can reinforce quickly and get them back up. But a little bit slower off the mark getting these bottom left mass points for Shepard. Engineer finally making contact with that little resourcing option. But at top right, you can see Iridium's ahead of the game. He's got his online. And a few Mantis, very unfortunately for Iridium, running headfirst into the ACU of Shepard, who's there to do some reclaiming. And pretty large force of Mantis now for Shepard, running straight down the middle and plucking a few Mantis kills from Iridium, from a little band that was traversing that middle. Seen just a little bit too late for Iridium to save them, and only one survives. And they're now making a beeline straight for this bottom section where Iridium's currently got his ACU, so they're not going to have too much luck there, I shouldn't think. But still, both players not really committing to the air game at the moment, focusing very heavily on Mantis spam. It's not too surprising, I shouldn't think. Both players kind of gauging their opponent at this point, although not that they won't know each other very well. I think this has gone on for a while. I'm not sure offhand how many times Shepard has challenged Iridium for this title, but I can imagine it would have been more than once. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm sure someone will. I know Adzi's also in this division, or has been. But a little singular bomber just working around on harassing some of these Mantis. Gets a nice pick up there. But I don't think this little forward push for Shepard will get too far. The numbers greatly favour Iridium. And Iridium actually having some success over on the left-hand side, picking up 2 to 3 mass points. 3 mass points going down. Looks like they might potentially score a kill on this factory as well. And of course, completely cutting off access to the bottom 2 mass points down here. So if you manage to make a successful push up here and take this, you're actually cutting off 5 mass points from your opponent. So you can see that's why that's the option for both of these guys. And indeed, Shepard is doing the same thing at the same time, but he's more aggressively moved his ACU forward to assist with the attack. And that's going to be 1 dead factory. The only thing is he needs to do with a few Medusas, the T1 artillery. Actually, I can hear some going off. You can see the shells landing. Going to need those to take down that point defense. And indeed, he is doing just that. However, Iridium's getting a few Mantis reinforcements into the area and is going to work on strafing past the corner. Doesn't want to get involved with the ACU, doesn't want to get overcharged to death and lose high numbers. But over on the left-hand side, Shepard looking like he's finally getting it under control. Will lose that 4th mass point, however. But I think that'll be the end of the push for now. But 2 Mantis have made their way into the bottom and killed the engineer that was chilling there and taken those 2 mass points as well. So things looking rather interesting at this point. Shepard taking a lot of fire, but looking like he may well finish off this factory with this Mantis spam. Just needs a couple of shots from the ACU or a second to reclaim. Indeed, there it goes. So, very even exchanges. However, in terms of Mantis numbers, Iridium certainly seems to have the upper hand at the moment. Taking a very quick break from the action to see how they're doing economically wise. Both of these guys, well, Shepard actually winning on the reclaim front, but currently sitting on around 19 mass, so he's losing dramatically out to Iridium, who's sitting on 33. So these little pushes on the left have really made up for it. It would make a great deal of sense for Shepard just to do what Iridium did, send a couple of Mantis round and with a couple of Medusa to hit that point defense and take out these two mass points. But there is a lot going on, so you can't judge him too harshly for that. Iridium now bringing his ACU into the fold. This could be interesting. Shepard was thinking about getting some mass extractors up for himself, just for a little bit of temporary mass relief, but this is not looking good for Shepard. He's incredibly isolated on the right-hand side. He's trying to reinforce his position. I don't see any great air advantage that he can come to bring into the fold. A lot of his reinforcements have been pushed down the left-hand side, which is perhaps an error. Could definitely have done with them up here, because Shepard's ACU is now out in the cold. And this could be the end. This could be handing the victory to game one to Iridium right here, right now. I don't really see how he's going to get out of it. Even if he had some air-to-ground units, it's a lot of interceptors flying overhead. Iridium has definitely cornered and outfoxed his opponent, I think, in this one. Shepard's ACU plummeting down into the red, and there he goes, Kaflooey. Very well played, Iridium. A little bit unfortunate there. Shepard just got out of position a little bit. He had some nice success on this forward section over on the right, but and to add insult to injury, looks like Shepard has managed to set the game to sandbox. So not going to end there until Shepard leaves, which he does, and that'll be the end of the game. So, very entertaining game there in game one, and we'll promptly just get game two set up for you. Incidentally, guys, of course, if you do use Facebook and haven't signed up to our Facebook page, it is in the description below. I've also got a link to my own Facebook page. It's a great place, all of both those places, to catch all of your relative media. So do feel free to check it out. But we head on over to game two, and that is going to be on Crazy Rush. Give me 2 secs while I just update the scoreboard. There we go. Can't have Iridium doing without his adjusted win. Now, Crazy Rush featured, of course, in the Rise of the Immortals trophy. If you're not familiar with this map, you may think, what the hell is this? 1 mass point each. That's ridiculous. But it's a scripted map. That means stuff happens on it that you know, wouldn't happen in your normal map. So every time this mass point gets taken, another mass point will appear around it. So this kind of increases in size exponentially. So it's actually got an incredible amount of mass available to the players. Both these guys working on getting as much or getting on their land factories, and they will need to get as much power as possible, of course. You'll see probably more than likely massive click and drags for factory spam, click and drags for power lines, power generators, because they will need everything they can get. And indeed, you can see pre-prepared templates from Shepard, very useful. He looks like he's got little kind of, I don't know, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are hexagons, aren't they? Little hexagons of power gens, and they're just dotted around. He just stamps them down. And that, you might wonder, if you're a newbie, what the purpose of that is. It basically just breaks up your power generators so that if you have any kind of incoming air attacks from bombers, you're not going to get any kind of chain reaction or multiple sets of damage from any one attack. Just gives you a little bit of kind of limited liability. But you can see here from the effects of Crazy Rush, the increasing size of the mass that's available to you, and that doesn't stop. That really does just keep going, as far as I'm aware. And these starting places, of course, or places where other people could start on a larger team game or free-for-all, they will do exactly the same thing if players decide to do it. But you see the amount of power generators that Shepard is queuing up. Just knock it up a notch. And it almost looks like Iridium is a little bit further behind because he hasn't queued up so much, but that doesn't mean he is. He is working on his second factory. So in terms of build capacity, currently, he says, I'm stalling. If we take a quick look at the economy, how is he stalling? He hasn't built enough power. He's trying to get power up as quickly as is humanly possible. It's actually really difficult because it's a completely different mindset to your typical game. It's you know, you've got to get all of this power out because you're not going to be hampered by mass. Just literally, you can see he's got his ACU in there, just building mechs after mechs after mechs, trying to get that up as quickly as possible. So really, this game not going to be a factor looking at economies. I mean, I suppose it is going to make a difference, and Shepard has got his T1 engineer assisting his ACU. It will still have an impact, obviously. The speed and the different rate at which these guys build things, the different selection which they decide to go, where they decide to focus more on build capacity at one stage in the game, whether to focus more on resourcing. And you can see now he's starting to really ramp up the amount of factories. Holy balls, that's a lot of queued up factories. Iridium's looking to go a little bit of a neater click and drag. This is what I'm talking about now, these long lines of power, long lines of factories. We'll just knock it up a notch a little bit more so these guys can actually get into the fight, because there isn't going to be much happening in the early game. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys face off against each other. Also, guys, I did mention earlier as well in a previous cast, I've got the link below into the pre-order for Planetary Annihilation, i.e. if you didn't donate to the Kickstarter project, you haven't got either beta or alpha access, you don't need to worry, you can still get that if you pre-order, and the link is in the description below to the pre-order page in the description below to this video, so do go on and check it out should you feel the necessity. Now we've got some units, some strikers coming out for Shepard. They're going to start massing just in front of his base, and both these guys starting to get a pretty decent factory spam on now, but that's a lot of Auroras out for Iridium, and we should see, being as that this is the level that these guys are at, a nice example in this game of Aurora Micro. And what do I mean when I say Aurora Micro? Some of you newbies might be wondering. Well, just to explain, the Aurora has a significantly larger range on it than the basic units of the other races, but they also completely tinfoil by comparison. They might be able to outrange other units, but they have literally less than half the HP of the striker. So you're going to want to be staying out of range of the strikers, moving backwards and forwards, picking up kills and then retreating and that kind of thing. Aurora Micro is tricky, and that is why they don't generally recommend newer players trying to pick up Aeon, certainly not for 1v1s, because the amount you have to use these basic starting units, you've got to get good with them. But at the moment, Iridium seems to have a lot more concentrated troops in formation anyway. Shepard not wanting to engage with that as yet. It's just sort of dodging backwards and forwards with some Lobos, firing the occasional shell. If we just take a look at the kind of range that they've got on, you can kind of see that circle as opposed to the circle on the striker, which is much smaller. So that's why it's tricky, but if you can master it, it will give you a nice advantage of your opponent. Of course, some people might think that's overpowered, but it's actually not, because the Aurora is the slowest unit, so it can be caught by the other units anyway over time. So if you're persistent and you have the numbers, you just keep charging on in with the strikers, and you will get some joy. Of course, the trick is, from the Aeon player's perspective, not to allow your opponent to get that close. So it's all about committal and overcommittal and so forth. But Iridium now deciding to push forward with his troops. Going to speed this up a little bit. Still hasn't brought his ACU forward. His ACU is still on an absolute building mission. Just out of interest, we take a look at what the economies look like. Iridium's sitting on 108 mass with no power, and Shepard's actually on 120 something mass. So Shepard for the moment is doing slightly better, and that will probably be down to the early engineer assistance he was doing. Indeed, he's got a couple of engineers that are all doing it at the same time, so it looks like he's given more build capacity to the construction of mass points, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to win out in the end. We've now got some T2 power out for Iridium, and that should at last fix his power issues. You can see the power flying up there, which should allow him to actually build at a consistent rate. Some interesting formations happening up on the left-hand side. It's almost like he doesn't want Shepard going over to pick up those any mass points on the left, but it doesn't really matter. He's not hampered by mass, so the only thing you're literally hampered by is building room, which you surprisingly run out of very quickly, even though this is a flat map. But when you have no constraints on economy and you can just build and build and build, that space disappears very quickly indeed. Still no T2 power out for Shepard as he engages with his own troops. Take a look at what that looks like. You can see quite a few troops now out from both sides, but a larger mix of artillery in Shepard's forces, whereas Iridium is relying a lot more on Aurora spam and direct fire units. But of course, the ACU getting involved there for Shepard will give him quite an advantage indeed. We're bound to see a pretty significant mass field generated in the middle. Actually, some air units out for Iridium as well. Not, of course, that the mass field matters in any way, shape or form on this map. Reclaim is not going to be an issue. But Iridium, feeling under pressure at the moment, is consolidating his forces into a more tightly packed unit. You see a nice overcharge there from Shepard's ACU, going a long way to thinning out the hordes of units. But it's totally impossible to say when these kind of things kick off who's going to win out, but very tightly packed units indeed. That looked like 7 or so Auroras going down in one pop, but you've got Harbingers out already for Iridium. That's insane. Didn't even see any Tech 2 coming out. We've got Harbingers on the way, that thanks to those T3 power gens, and that's going to cause an absolute headache for Shepard, who's doing a very nice job with his overcharge, but suddenly finds himself with absolutely no units whatsoever. This is going to be a ACU only affair as he overcharges that Harbinger. He's going to need to keep his ACU there now because he has nothing else basically to deal with those Harbingers. He needs to keep his ACU in the fold. So it's a very nice tech upgrade indeed. As I slow this up, I'm running at -1 and it still feels like I might miss action, but I'm going to run it at normal speed and hope that the volume from all of the explosion and the combat doesn't get too much for you guys to bear. Still not focusing on the commander at the moment, still just worrying about thinning out the units. I think Iridium could probably risk going in for some damage on the commander. Shepard now back up to full strength, up on 84 kills. You can see the difference that that's made. But now Iridium decides to put some fire on the commander. You can see the rate at which his HP is dropping, and some bombs coming in as well from Iridium, and absolutely no air at all out for Shepard. He's completely neglecting it. Feels like he wants to go for land-only play, and this is not looking good for him at all. He's been out-teched, he's been out-flanked on the unit selection, with Iridium choosing to go air. And that ACU is beginning to look very lonely in the middle indeed, as his force is starting to get thinned out, and the Harbinger's made his way around the back. Of course, there's absolutely nothing in terms of mountains or anything to stop a player doing this. And he's just going to go around swatting. This is starting to look like a very one-sided match indeed. And of course, if Iridium wins this, that will be the end of the match. He will go forward again for the 6th successive time and retain his title. And we've got Oblivion turrets going up now as well. So not only is he winning on tech and unit, and having decided to go for different types of units, starting to go for bombers, he's also getting a point defense creep on. And Shepard, this looks like things are going from bad to worse. You can see the amount of mass points that have been taken out already. He has made the transition to T3 himself. He looks like he's working on Percivals, and they will go some way to defeating the Harbingers. He's also going for a mix of Titans as well, which is a sensible move because they will deal very nicely with the Auroras. But Shepard sort of having to play a very risky game, still needs to keep him at the front. That overcharge is invaluable. It's going to keep him in the game. But he has to keep his range, of course, because those Auroras, when they decide to go, can go in and target him. And it could be all kinds of difficulties. And, of course, the range on those Oblivion turrets as well. Wants to deal with that Percival. Indeed, he does. Absolutely plummeting down on hit points. And Shepard just getting Alpha Strike, goes down in a matter of seconds. And that is going to be another win for Iridium, who takes the match and the week. Congratulations to him. Very well done indeed. Commiserations, Shepard. But if you can take anything from this, it is that you won't be facing him again if you decide to sign up again next week, because Iridium will now be bumped up to the over 2000s. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I did. Incidentally, guys, if you are interested in signing up for the Worldwide People's Championship, it isn't just these higher tier matches. It's the you've got the over 2000, the under 2000s, the under 1700s, and the under 1200s. So if you're an average Joe, there is a place for you. Just sign up in the tournament section under the Worldwide People's Championship, and you can get yourself on one of those lists. But for now, that's enough from me. Stay safe till next time, guys. This is Gyle signing out.